Hey folks, hope everybody's having a peaceful day. I decided that I'm going to do a little video on the struggle that I've had to find a safe vehicle and fill y'all in on what's going on with that. If I look exhausted, that's because I am. It was 100 degrees today here in Chandler, Arizona. Just kind of hung out in the car. I found a little shaded spot that I can go to during the day, and definitely helps being in the shade, but it's still 100 degrees. So yeah, I guess I should start from the beginning. So back in December, I think it was December 26th actually, I had just made the cross-country trip from Maryland to San Diego, California. I decided to come out here because it's relatively warm in the winter. I wasn't about to do a Maryland winter in the car. And I did Florida last year, so I wanted to switch things up. San Diego itself doesn't have like a whole lot of spots where you're really not going to get bothered, with the exception of Fiesta Island, which is literally a little island in Mission Bay. And you know, there are a lot of homeless people in Southern California, so there are rules that you can't go on the island between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. It's closed, but at 4 a.m. they open it up, and you can sleep there. I'm a night owl. I usually try to go to bed at like 2 in the morning, but I figured it would be something that would work, you know, for the time being. Honestly, finding new spots can be super stressful, so I decided I was just gonna stick with it until I decided to find something else, until I got tired of it. So about a week goes by. You know, it was Christmas and New Year's, so I was actually making pretty decent money and feeling very optimistic that, you know, I'm finally gonna start chipping away at, you know, these couple thousand in debt that have kind of been following me around. And my hope was to get to a place this winter where I would essentially be debt free, and I could at least move forward. You know, my trusty Civic Humpty was literally just months away from being paid off. Unfortunately, about a week into my stay in San Diego, I parked on this island, and basically, you know, the beach is, I don't know, it's like 30 feet of like sand, you know, once you kind of get off the road that kind of encircles the island. And I figured that, you know, I'm aware that there's a tide, but I was fairly far back from the water, and problem is, I get to bed, it's probably, I don't know, 5 a.m. by the time I get to sleep, and wake up about 90 minutes later with water up to my ankles. There's about like almost a foot of water in my car, and I literally, at that point, first thing I did was like freak out. I tried to back up, which, you know, may or may not have actually sucked water into the engine, I don't know, but when you wake up in the middle of a bay, you know, that was just my first response. I got back about 10 feet, and at that point the car died, because I was probably a good 15-20 feet into the bay. And so I got a little farther out. You know, I get out, I look around, and you know, I realize, yes, I am indeed in the bay. And I just laughed, because I realized how awful this was. As somebody with MCS, like, my safe car was like my safe space, and I was super protective of it. And, you know, I was ready to, even if the transmission or engine were to go out, I would have just replaced it to be able to keep that safe space. But unfortunately, I realized that it wasn't my safe space anymore. It was soaked, you know, and so that means mold. And basically, I was able to, I called a tow company, but before they got there, some guy drove by with, he was like in a truck, and he had a tow strap. So he basically pulled me out.
At least
get you some hits.
At least I'll have something kind of interesting to start. That's a good shot. You're welcome. Have a nice one.
So, you want to be in the interview?
Sure, man.
Going in.
And so, as all this is happening, you know, the guy's pulling my car out. All of a sudden, a guy drives by and he's got like a camera and a microphone. And as it turns out, he's an independent reporter. And he starts filming everything. And, you know, I ask him, like, you know, who does he work for and everything. And he told me that he's like an independent reporter. So what he does is like, he chases like all the stuff that's happening and then he tries to sell the footage. And yeah, he just caught everything on camera. You know, even did a little interview with me and the guy who pulled me out. And you know, he said, you know, he'll try to sell it to some of the local news channels, and he doubts if you know, anybody might buy it, but you know, he said he'd give it a shot. And I was just so concerned about the situation and just wanted to like get it off my chest that like I was happy to give him a little, you know, interview or whatever. And I figure, you know, it'll be on the local news channels, you know, once, and then, you know, nobody's gonna, you know me or care or whatever. But what happened is, so the reason the car got flooded is because there was something called the king tide that happens apparently twice a year in Mission Bay. And one of those days apparently was December 26th. I had never heard of what a king tide is. But now I will never forget what it is. And obviously it's just a tide that's like way stronger than usual. You know, that comes up a lot higher than usual. And I was just Googling it a few days later, the king tide, because I figured, you know, maybe I'll need some info to show my insurance what happens, that I'm not just like a total idiot, you know. And second result that I see looking up king tide is there was a headline that said something along the lines of like, local teens submerged during king tide, and I see my picture. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, so as it turns out, like the local, I think ABC channel and then the local Fox channel, I guess picked up the story. And I don't know why they thought I was 18, because I never gave my age. I don't know if they were just trying to make it all spicy, like, oh, look at this poor teenager or whatever, but one of them really did me dirty, and now I'm forever immortalized as an 18-year-old transient. And you know, it is what it is. I definitely can laugh at it a little bit now, and I think once I get in a car of my own, I'll be able to really process this entire thing, because right now I'm just kind of in survival mode. But it does feel like it's adding insult to injury just a little bit. Like, at least call me like an intrepid traveler or something, you know? From there, I was able to call a tow company to take me to the Honda dealership, and to be honest with you, they didn't seem to particularly care. You know, I think they were just saying like, dude, you just gotta write this off. That was a really rough day because the car wouldn't start. I mean, it was just like, it was like toast. And so I spent the day literally walking. I spent probably like 2 hours walking, and I went to like the local businesses. Like, thankfully there was like a lot of other like car service shops in the area. So I was able to get an extension cord from one. I was able to get a shot vac from another, and just get kind of the standing pool of water out of the car. But the thing was still soaked. Engine wouldn't start. But after many hours passed, the end of the day, finally the car started. And so you know, I bought a bunch of towels, put those down, but the car was still super wet. I mean, the condensation was just like all over all the windows, but that was like my home. I didn't really have anywhere else to go. So thankfully I was able to get up to a Planet Fitness parking lot, because actually I had a dog sitting gig that was starting the next day. So I got close to where they were at, and I'm so glad that I made that drive, because the next morning the car stopped working. And so I had to get a tow from that parking lot to the gig, and thankfully the universe arranged a place for me to stay for those for the next 4 days. And so in that time, you know, I got a couple fans. The days were fairly warm and sunny, so I was able to get the car decently dried, but it wouldn't start. And ultimately I was able to get it running again for 1 day. I paid a guy $500 to, something got wet, and he was able to fix something, replace something, the starter, I think. And it died again after a day though. And at that point, you know, I called the insurance. I was told that the computers were out, and then obviously there was all the water damage and everything. And super grateful that I was able to find a rental car that I was almost able to tolerate from the start. As you can see, the thing is wrapped in tin foil because there's cologne literally all over that steering wheel. That's got me a couple funny looks, you know. Obviously, you know, I'd rather that not happen, but you reach a certain point with MCS where you just kind of like, you do not have the bandwidth to like care what people think. So, you know, I like pull up to the drive-thru to pick up like a DoorDash order, and you know, they're handing me the order and they just see the tinfoil on there, and I'm just like, what's up? And you know, some dealers, when I would pull up, you know, that didn't really help, you know, lend credibility to my sanity. You know, while I'm there, I'm allergic to this, allergic to that. And so my way of dealing with that, I'd just be like, yeah, no, I know you probably see the tinfoil on there, man, but that just kind of gives you an idea of how sensitive I am. But on the bright side, I got enough left for a hat, you know? And actually, I found that like techniques like that actually kind of, they're kind of like good icebreakers. Probably the funniest or most depressing, depending on, you know, which way you look at it. I see it as both. Thing was, I was literally just like sitting at a gas station, just like on my phone or something. And some guy comes up to me and he's like, hey man, are you holding, you know, meth? Are you selling? And I'm like, I'm not. He's like, are you sure, man? Like, I could really use some. I've had like a big day. And I'm like, I'm sorry, man. He's like, man, you sure you don't have anything? And I'm like, my man, like, you know, do your thing, but I can't help you with this. And after he left, I realized that, like, oh my God, like, he thinks I'm a meth head, because that's a very meth head thing to do, to like wrap things in tin foil. And I don't know, at that moment I had like a straight up just like belly laugh moment where it's just like, this is my life now. I decided to just kind of continue to stay up in Vista, which was you know, I wasn't about to go back to Fiesta Island, so it's a ways north of San Diego, but still in the county. And I wanted to get that payout first. But honestly, I was just putting off looking for the new car because I knew it was going to be difficult. I just didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. So ultimately, I spent about a couple weeks. I probably visited at least 24 dealerships all around northern San Diego County, even went out to San Diego for a little bit. Met with some private sellers as well, and the issue that I kept running into at the dealers, the cars are either full of detailing chemicals, which I react to very badly, like nerve burning, agitation, breathing difficulties, and that kind of stuff. So no way I can, you know, use that as my car, especially if I'm going to be staying in it. The problem, and even the ones that weren't detailed, they were just musty because they'd been sitting on the lot for a while. And so I was getting that issue, those issues, the must and the detailing chemicals at the dealerships. But the private seller cars, they weren't as musty because they'd been aired out, you know. So even if they were an older car, some of them were pretty bad, but some of them, you know, were fairly okay as far as that goes. But people had their colognes, their laundry detergents, and it was just one of those things where I was reacting to those things. You know, I didn't know how soaked into the car they were. And I just could not risk buying one of those vehicles because it could be weeks, months, years, or never, you know, before they get to a point where I'd be able to buy it without having a serious reaction to them. So I ultimately found somebody on Facebook who was selling a car. They have MCS as well, and I trekked 8 hours to Arizona, you know, with a lot of optimism that, you know, this could be the car for me. But unfortunately, I am probably more mold sensitive than most, and the car truly was like chemical free. It didn't really even have much of a smell, but the problem is it was a kind of an older model vehicle, and just getting mold and mildew, those is just unavoidable. So I had a very strong neurological reaction. I felt like I had pins and needles all over, not to mention, you know, headache, and just overall just feeling very unwell. So I went to Tucson and went to basically every dealership in Tucson. Went to Chandler, which is a Phoenix suburb, and went to basically every dealership there and several in the surrounding area. And ultimately, you know, at this point, it'd probably been a couple hundred cars that I'd looked at, and it was difficult. You know, it was just every day I'd, you know, spend a couple hours. Well, not every day. There was days where I just didn't have it in me. Because it's a lot dealing with people, you know, explaining to dealers who are like rolling their eyes. And some of them, you know, were just kind of straight up rude. Others were very kind and understanding. But it was actually great practice. I'm to the point now where after that exposure therapy of just telling people like, yes, I have these severe allergies, and dealing with all these dealers became almost like a running joke for me, because it was almost like they were reading from a script when it comes to like how they were reacting to my MCS. First thing they would say when I described that, you know, I'm extremely allergic to air fresheners, detailing chemicals, mold, you know, colognes that might have rubbed off, it would be like, oh no, don't worry, man, like we can definitely take care of you, we'll find something for you. And then you know, we'd look at some cars and I'd tell them like, yeah, unfortunately this one's super musty, or this one is you know, was recently detailed, or has, you know, I'm reacting to it. And at that point they'd be like, oh well, we can totally wash it out, you know, like we can scrub it with like, you know, baking soda. The ones that had half a brain would say something like that. Others like, oh, we'll just detail it for you. And I just look at them like, have you not heard a word I've said? And I would just tell them honestly, like, you know, in my experience with this condition, with years of living with MCS, it's like something either works or it doesn't. You can't really like make it better. You can definitely make it worse trying though. And at that point they would all go, well, it sounds like what you're looking for is impossible. You know, just, I don't know, maybe they're mad they couldn't make a sale, or they just somehow were like offended. But to me, you know, obviously that's kind of frustrating, but it almost became funny because a bunch of them kind of followed that sort of script. Ultimately, I found a dealer who is just a nice guy. He's, I think, recognizes what a bind I'm in, and he really wants to help me. He actually took me to 2 auctions where I could actually look at the cars, and generally, you know, they've either been repossessed or in like a accident, and they just take them as is to the auction lot, and then the dealers go ahead and bid on them and, you know, fix them up or whatever. So I was thinking, no way I'm not gonna find a car here. And you know, over the course of 2 weeks, you know, I probably spent 10 hours at this auction lot, and I mean, this place was absolutely huge. Hundreds upon hundreds of cars there, thousands really. And I was just running into the issue of everything is like too musty or too new and has like the new car smell. And the only one I found that I thought I could maybe work with was another car of the same type that I'm renting. It's a Kia K5. For some reason, Kias seems to be very low-key as far as the chemicals go that they used to make it. And after like 2 years, they seem to be kind of okay for me. It did have a bit of a new car smell, but the thing is, it was way out of my price range. And I did get a loan, but the fact is just, I have to draw the line somewhere in terms of even what my monthly payment is going to be, because at the moment my income really is not where it needs to be, and I have a limited amount of energy, and I want to create a situation where I'm not going to get in over my head. And unfortunately, even after the second week, I wasn't able to find one, so I figured, you know, I might have to just go again the next week. But then I started thinking, maybe if I get a van, that could help me, because a lot of the vans out there, especially Ford Transit, which is the model that I was looking at, they have the carpet in front, they have the headliner and the seats, but other than that, it's just kind of like a metal box. And I figured that I might be able to get it clean, because I figured how badly could metal soak in these smells. And so I went and looked at one and ended up passing on it, because it had an air freshener in there, and even though I told the guy I was allergic to him, ended up looking at another one, and it had been an HVAC truck for 10 years, and it did have a motor oil smell. But I decided at that point I had to make a decision. You know, it had been literally 4 months, $4,000, you know, spent on this rental, and I had to make a decision, had to try something, change my approach. Ultimately, you know, I had a guy take out the upholstery in the van, the seats, as I've explained in another video. He power washed the metal, he scrubbed it with baking soda, and it was not even 10% better. It was still terrible. So I've decided I'm gonna go ahead and sell that van, and took a little time down on the farm where the van is to just relax, decompress, and start this channel. And I hate to go back to this search, but I have to. You know, I need to have a home base. You know, I'm not even looking for like a physical place to stay at the moment. I just need a vehicle that I can make work, and I'm so ready to go back home to Maryland. This genuinely has been a very exhausting process. Yeah, you know, there's this character in Greek mythology called Sisyphus, and he's basically been damned to roll a boulder up a mountain for eternity, and then after it gets to the top, it rolls back down, and he just has to like keep pushing it. And you know, after literally like over 100 days in a row of just like looking for a vehicle that I can be in, like, I feel that dude's pain. Like, it's just this, it feels like an exercise in futility. It's an absurd situation to be in, to just not be able to find a car despite putting in basically a full-time job's worth of effort into it. But I'm back up in Chandler, that dealer, I got back in touch with him. He still wants to help me, and he actually, so I told him, you know, I'm gonna come back up, I'll stay in touch. He actually called me yesterday. He was like, yeah, I'm bored, so I took a car that I thought might work for you, and I'm taking out the seats, I'm taking out the carpet, I'm taking out everything, and I'm just gonna wash it really well. I'm gonna be looking at that tomorrow, and really just crossing my fingers that it's gonna work for me. I'm super, super, super grateful for this dealer. And I'm actually gonna drop his info in the description of this video, because he said, you know, he likes a challenge and that he would be happy to try and help other MCSers. So he's also just a really good guy. He's really been helping me out. So hopefully this whole ordeal will be over. I really hope this is the one and I don't have to keep looking. I might even try to get this one more thoroughly cleaned if I think there's a chance, or maybe another one, you know, go to another auction, see if the car is, find one that's like the least bad basically, and try to get that just completely cleaned with like really hot water. That's the best option I can come up with, because everything is just too musty for me otherwise. So he also said maybe like you need a day or two to like see if this car will work for you. And I'm super grateful for that, because it might give me a little chance to air it out, see if it's something that I think might be able to be workable if there's an issue with it initially. So to anybody who is in a similar situation, anybody who's struggling with a place to stay, finding a vehicle, just know that you are not alone. And I don't have any like super helpful advice at this point, other than, you know, just try to take moments to take a break. Obviously, having a place to stay is such a basic like human need, and it can be so easy to just like feel like you can't rest until you resolve it. But it's not good to always be in this nervous state. So just try to get away somewhere, go do something that you enjoy, or spend some time, or call somebody who you care about and who understands you, and just try to live in the moment as best as you can. This is super difficult, but you know, we're stronger together, so we got to support each other. And I hope at some point, you know, once I've solved this issue for myself, I have some tricks up my sleeve for things I might want to do to try to get an okay vehicle livable, you know. I'll definitely be sharing those, and if y'all have any tips, tricks, or just experiences that you want to share, or just something you want to get off your chest about what you're going through, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'd love to chat with you. That's been my winter, you know, about 500 cars in, so maybe the 501st will be the charm. And with that, I wish y'all a peaceful rest of your day. Peace.